You're listening to the Hour of the Time, live. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is an important broadcast and may help some of you. We're a little confused about what's happening. Understand a little bit better. But you have to have a little bit of background in some of the past broadcasts of the Hour of the Time. And I would urge you to help in this education. Not only listen to the broadcast tonight, but go see the motion picture entitled The Lion King, and make sure that you pick up issue number 5 of Veritas. It's going to press on Tuesday, for those of you who have been waiting patiently. Don't go away. Tonight is extremely important. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout history there's been reference made to members of an order called Ith, members of an order called the Rosencross, the Rosicrucian Order, the Secret Schools, the Brotherhood, the Order, the Hermetic Brotherhood, the Sons of Isis and Osiris, the Fraternitas Rosae Crucis, the Temple of the Rosy Cross, the Knights of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, the Order of the Magi, and of course, the old bugaboo that if you dare to mention, you will be ostracized and ridiculed, I guarantee you, the Illuminati. However, what I'm going to read to you tonight, verbatim, comes from the writing of the Reverend R. Swinburne Clymer, who was the Director General of the Church of Illumination, the Supreme Grand Master of the International Confederation of Initiates, the Supreme Grand Master of the merged occult fraternities comprising the Priesthood of Ith, the Rosicrucian Order, the Secret Schools, the Hermetic Brotherhood, the Sons of Isis and Osiris, Fraternitas Rosae Crucis, Temple of the Rosy Cross, the Order of the Magi, and the Grand Master of the Illuminati Americani, or, for those of you who have never studied Latin, the American Illuminati. It was published by the Philosophical Publishing Company, Beverly Hall, Quakertown, Pennsylvania. And the specific text, which I will quote, comes from the Rose Cross College. The origin of symbolism. Carlyle said, "It is through symbols that man can consciously or unconsciously live, move, and has his being. Those ages, moreover, are accounted the noblest, which can best recognize symbolic worth and prize it at its highest." You just listened to an opening number called The Circle of Life. And if you listened to the lyrics, and especially if you have seen the motion picture, and if you have studied the other symbolism being presented to the American public, especially within the last few years, and escalating exponentially as time goes by, you will recognize much of what you have been seeing and hearing and watching and what has been being inculcated into your subconscious in this text. There can be no understanding of symbology, myth, allegory, religion, nor of the ancient dramas and writings from whence came the Bible, all the sacred literature, and Freemasonry, without beginning at the very dawn of creation. With the 48 constellations, that's right, constellations, and I'm not talking some weird astrology stuff. This is out of the mouths of the occult masters of those who are making a bid for the world, also known as the pearl of great price. Best illustrated by a recent edition of Omni magazine. I bet you wondered what the cover of that magazine was trying to convey, because there was nothing inside that magazine that correlated. But nevertheless, it was a message in symbology. It showed a seashore a small section of sandy beach, a rocky approach to that beach, and then a vast ocean beyond. The sea was unbelievably calm for those of us who have ever been near it or lived near it for any extent of time. It was as smooth as glass. Water throughout history has been the symbol of the masses, or the feminine state. It showed that the masses had been calmed. In the shallows near the beach, within reach of anyone walking, was a large oyster. The oyster was not closed as an oyster would normally be found near the beach, but was open. Within reach in this oyster from the shore, for anyone who wanted to grab it, was the pearl of great price. It was the world. And it was a message to the brotherhood that they are at the point in time that they have been striving for throughout history, where finally, if no one foils their efforts, the pearl of great price is within their reach. All of their machinations have been brought to fruition. The 48 constellations, which were the true number in the beginning, whose boundaries were established and the corresponding figures drawn around them by the divine teachers of men, conveys a message of the plan for the evolution of humankind. Only fools dismiss as not worth knowing what they do not understand. And thus, the true meaning can be hidden, and men can be manipulated by this occult knowledge. Occult merely means hidden. Origen declared that in the time of Enoch, the constellations were already named and divided. The book of Job, the most occult and one of the most ancient of the Bible, speaks of the sweet influence of the Pleiades, the bands of Orion, Arcturus and his sons, Behemoth, Leviathan, and the fleeing serpent of Mazzaroth, with its seasons, stations, and stopping places, which is the solar zodiac. And these are not accounts or recounts of visitations of ancient astronauts from some other world. Both astronomy and astrology were advanced, if not perfect sciences in Job's day. The modern scientists have not added one jot or title to them, but have met with confusion and failure in attempting to measure them by modern methods or present-day standards. Although God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years," yet we have rejected those signs as evidences of ignorance and superstition, and those who say they believe in God reject God's word in the doing it. For God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." We have regarded the ancient nature religion as species of paganism until now that the sign of the Son of Man spoken of by Matthew has appeared in the moon. It is the modern Rosicrucian order, survivor of the Essene and the ancient church known in the Bible as Israel, that warns us of the significance of the sign, and that we may also expect it to appear in the sun. From them, we learn that the phenomenon alluded to in Matthew foretells the change of the age, which takes place every 2,145 years, not the end of the world, as your lying preachers and ministers have been pounding into your heads. The change of the age, when our sun passes into a new constellation. As that orb is now on the upward path of the spiral, we realize that with new era, all false teachings will pass out with the old serpent whose tail takes up a third of the sky, that in place of dogma and doctrine we shall see the restoration of the ancient knowledge, that truth shall emerge. Instinctively, most people turn to the language of signs and symbols as the constellations change before the wondering eyes of modern astronomers. For the unsealing of the stars and of the Bible is at hand, foretold by Isaiah. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. Because the people worship God only by lip service, not heart service, the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the restoration of the ancient church Israel be made. In this prophecy, we realize the passing of the present systems of education with the dragon constellation and the return of the mysteries. If the dragons symbolize dogma and doctrine, disagreement and confusion, it also serves to guard the mysteries from the profane ages through which the human race was passing. Elimination of the false constellations, which modern astronomers have attempted to add to the original 48, shows us that these supposedly grotesque figures are telling a story which as a dramatic prophecy ran through long ages while man enacted the story of himself individually, racially, and as a pilgrim striving for sonship with God by self-development. Now, this story, or drama, the ancients divided into 12 great books with 48 chapters, the books being the 12 zodiacal signs, which with the decans of 3 minor constellations to a sign, made the chapters. The time of reading or enactment of the drama was determined by the movements of the sun through the precision of the equinoxes around the mystic Pleiades and Alcyon, the great center of the universe. With each recurring change from one constellation to another, there appeared the warning sign of the cross in sun and moon, and with it a master teacher, our reconstruct, purify, and remind man of his mission in earth life, of the fleeting years of man's incarnations and the earth's closing ages. In each age, the Master has met persecution, crucifixion, and death under the rule of the dragon and false teachers. And this is the story. The age-old story of the heavens, which is the same as that of the Bible and other sacred books, revolves around 3 main characters. The divine maid, our church eternal in the heavens, represented by Isis. The serpent or false teachings who deceives the nations, leads man astray, and threatens the maid about to bring forth the child. And this serpent is Set, our Typhon. The child is the truth, or Veritas, or Horus. And the Christ, the Son of God, who becomes man and appears from age to age as both Son of and rescuing Knight of the divine maid, our church Israel, freeing her from the wiles of the serpent, drinking ever of the holy grail cup of sacrifice, ere he gives up this earthly vestment upon the cross at the hands of evil leaders of the people. The eternal enmity of the woman and her divine Son, the White Knight, to the serpent, whose head they eventually crush beneath their heels, is the main characteristic of the fight of the race and of the individual for immortality, by conquest of the evil within and without themselves. This is the one great master theme which the heavens are telling, the origin of the symbolism which runs throughout Old and New Testaments in prophecy and promise. It is the source of all so-called pagan myth. You see, in the unsealing of the stars, all religions meet: Chaldean, ancient Egyptian, Assyrian, Hebrew, Arabus, Hindu, the Druidic, Zoroastrian, Peruvian, Aztec and Toltec, Greek and Roman, and yes, even the Christian. And all speak the one universal language of the soul's strife for life everlasting. We read in the stars the original of Perseus and Andromeda, Isis and Osiris, and Typhon the serpent, the Virgin, Joseph and the Christ, the story of Hiram Abiff and the three traitors of all ages, St. George and the dragon, the rites of Mithra and the Mass of the Roman Church, as well as the first presentation of all drama of all ages, races, and civilizations. Applied to the individual man, the story is portrayed for each human being as a potential Christ who comes from God, a spirit, a divine spark, which through struggles with the serpent, or earthly temptations, through ages of incarnations, he is to build into conscious perfection, to tread the serpent under heel, to recognize the divine maid and become her knight errant, to bring forth the Christ, his soul, beset by temptations and traitors, yes, traitors, is the part played by each actor in this grand drama. Each actor, you see, enters the strife when he falls or makes the descent from spirit into matter. With each life he falls again, struggles in a short space, returns to his Father's house to rest. Again he hears the call, drinks of the waters of life, and enters the earth stage once more for another lesson in the warfare against evil and the serpent. At last, if defeated, his soul returns to the God who gave it, and his personality dies the eternal death. But if the victor, he attains immortality and oneness with the Father in Christhood. Entering into the Father's house, to go no more out forever, does not constitute idleness or mere blissful dreaming. The angel will never rest until all mankind have followed him. Now, I hope you were listening very carefully. The angel will never rest until all mankind have followed him. And who do you suppose that angel is? What are they talking about here? He will return countless times as a savior of the race on countless planets. Nor will the victor leave the earth's environment permanently until the last player is defeated or become a master of life and death and the planetary spirit returned to rest. Long ages has the suffering Jesus upheld the earth while men reveled in the delights of the beast, upheld it with groanings that cannot be uttered. There comes an age when the Holy Spirit will no longer strive with man. When the lights are out, the drama completed, audience and players gone to their rewards. No longer shall the pilgrim man need the constellations and the recurring warning of the rose-cross sign of the Son of Man in the sun and moon. For the Christ principle shall have been withdrawn throughout all space. In the Apocrypha of the Old Testament, 2nd Esdras, it says this: By measure hath he measured the times, and he doth not move nor stir them until the said measurer be fulfilled. For after these years shall my Son Christ die, and all things that have life, and the world shall be turned into the old silent 7 days, like as in former judgments, so that no man shall remain. And here we arrive at the ancient constellations. In the most ancient maps, the zodiac was presented as a serpent banding the earth by holding its tail in its mouth. The band is 16 degrees wide and, owing to the earth's movement around the sun, appears partly above the equator 6 months and below it for the other half of the year. The ancient wise men had deeply scientific reasons for assigning the constellations and for drawing the figures around each. Certain principles were thus represented and definite laws set forth, with which the student will become acquainted as he progresses. The 12 great volumes in which the grand symbolic drama was written were comprised of the 12 major constellations, modified by 3 others each, making up the total of 48. These set forth the whole story of man's evolution from a spirit form to angelhood, by races, nations, and individuals, as the sun marked time, winding up the spiral, remained at an apex 1,000 years, and returned with a corresponding day at the lower turn of the spiral. And first is Virgo. Virgo symbolizes the great mother principle in the bringing forth, and therefore stands at the opening of the 12 volumes Genesis. This is the divine maid with angel wings, carrying the sheaf of wheat in one hand, the promised seed, in which is set the star Spica that announced to the seers the advent of a Christ. In the other hand, she carries the branch, so often referred to under symbol as Christ. This so-called branch is one of Virgo's decans, or 10 days of the month. Some readings speak of the smaller constellation as the desired one, and it is to be understood as representing the Christ principle or cosmic force of all universes, or the Lamb that was slain. And again, the Savior or Master Teacher who manifests in the flesh from age to age. To the individual actor upon the stage, it is his goal. The divine spark, his own soul developed into Christhood, the Christ within himself, made perfect in complete immortality, the Holy Grail attained. Centaurus' victim, a smaller serpent constellation, slain under the dart of the man-horse, stands as the second decan in Virgo, while Joseph, or Butes, is the third. In Joseph, we have wisdom as the guardian or shepherd of the Holy Family, and presented in starry allegory is the origin of all the forms of the Virgin and Son of all times and race. Applied to the great center of the universe, we recognize the scientific elucidation of the Trinity in the Father, creative power, the Mother, Holy Spirit, and receptive power, and the Christ, our Son, at whose going forth the sublime universe sprang into existence. Applied to the human race, we note that a Christ-like fatherhood and a holy motherhood may bring forth a perfect child. To an individual, the symbology stands for the mind as a creative power, the spirit a receptive power, while the two together may bring forth a complete immortal soul from the seed or divine spark allotted each human being. Hence, we may not be surprised to find the ancient Egyptians had an Isis, Osiris, and Horus, the Japanese a Virgin and Child, or the Druids, Mexicans, and Persians, as well as the Hindus, one form or another of the ancient starry group, long before the Christian era enshrined it as a Mary and Christ. In Virgo is to be seen the origin of all sun and moon myths of all times. And in this constellation we have the idea of the so-called fall, for it passes below the horizon in the fall, followed by Butes, or Joseph, passing too from sight as the earth swept into age of heroes, from the age of virgin-born races, then to the age of men, and finally to the age of brute men at the lowest point in the spiral. The birth of Esau and Jacob marked an important turn of the upward cycle, and with Jacob came in Israel, the Virgin Church. In Genesis, the church is personified as 12-tribed Israel, which as a race shall evolve and lead the nations upward toward a new golden age when Virgo, divine maid, Israel, the church, bride and mother of the Christ, shall crown the great cycle by appearing again with Spica, star of the east, to herald the coming of the Christ age. Especially does Virgo and her companion decans represent woman, trodden underfoot for countless centuries, but now rising and demanding a perfect and knightly manhood. With Virgo, woman and her descendants crush underfoot the old serpent, while man in the background as Joseph guards and aids. When Virgo at last stands upright, the race of heroes then embodied will merge into a race of virgin-born gods. In 12-tribed Israel, the tribe of Benjamin, who was born of beloved Rachel, was allotted to Virgo and September. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. Libra follows Virgo, both in the great cycle or circle of life and in the year cycle. It indicates equal balancing of the conditions which influenced the human race after Virgo's decline. Equal day and night in the autumn, and equal poise in a human being born at this time of the year. You see, to this sign is given the decan of the Southern Cross, a constellation not seen in America, save in the southern states. It consists of 4 stars set in the form of a cross with a rose at the center. It is said this constellation hung above Jerusalem at the time of the crucifixion, and upon it the eyes of Jesus rested when he asked to know by what sign he should overcome the powers of earth. From above and from within, a voice answered, "By the sign of the Son of Man. For the rose set in this cross is the sign of life and human love." The second decan in Libra is the Northern Crown, a symbol of victory over the physical. It is the reward of the cross of the South, or love. The crown which the knight is attempting to win is threatened by the serpent, but the third decan of Libra, Centaur, riding upon the great horse, kills the serpent first met in Virgo with his dart. The tribe of Reuben was allotted to Libra in October. While tradition asserts that Reuben people were the red-haired races. "Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power," said Jacob in his blessing. But to indicate the other balance, "Unstable as water, thou shalt not succeed," he concluded. Scorpio, drawn as a noxious insect with tail uplifted to sting, Scorpio is supported by a serpent and 2 knights of the Grail, Ophiuchus and Hercules the strong man. The first knight the serpent has stung in the heel, but he bravely crushes it with the other foot, while Hercules, the second knight, also wounded in the heel, holds the other foot in readiness above the serpent's head, bending his own as victor to receive the northern crown. A club in one hand and the branch of conquest are peace in the other. No more deadly symbols are set in any one constellation than in the group of Scorpio, covering as they do the most important teaching concerning the struggle of the individual man at the north door of the temple, the physical. If man allows the sex principle to dominate him, the inner light dies out. Torpor and death result, and he slips down the ladder of incarnations. The divine maid is left undefended, and defeat faces him. The ancient church assigned Scorpio to November. Through this principle, all souls must enter the earth stage to run their course, and of this month she set the climax as the middle of the month, October 29th, All Souls' Eve, or Halloween. The Christian church has been in the toils of Scorpio since the centuries when it departed from the esoteric teaching of ancient Israel. Its members and the nations who call themselves by its various names have violated the most holy principles of the Holy Grail. In the great cycle, the fall follows the decline of Virgo and Libra, and November brings in the meteoric fall of stars, while the sun declines in the old sun myths toward his cave of December 22nd. The sun will return with the spring and the ancient church, whose reminder we yet celebrate in All Souls' Eve and Halloween, still points out to us from the starry allegory the victory of Ophiuchus and Hercules over the serpent principle. The Israelitish priesthoods, Simeon and Levi, were assigned to Scorpio in the month of November. And of them Jacob said, "Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel." Sagittarius. Is the steed ridden by the white knight Perseus when he rescues Andromeda? the divine maid, from the chains which bind her under the threatening dragon. His decans are Draco, the great dragon of the Apocalypse, and Ara, the altar, all together with Lyra, the eagle with the harp of 13 strings. Andromeda is the daughter of the king and queen of Ethiopia, the celestial country, symbolizing the church in chains, while Draco represents dogmas and doctrines which have enchained her, rather than sex debasement as figured by the serpent constellation of Scorpio and Virgo. Draco winds himself down from the pole star. According to St. John, his tail takes up a third part of the heavens. In his head is set the mysterious evil star Algol, which is awfully close to Al Gore. Draco acts as a guardian, however, of the mysteries from those unable to understand them, yet they may be revealed through his dogmatic veil to him whose clear sight enables him to penetrate the drapery. Jim Mosley wanted to know what the guardian was all about. I suggest that he read this. The head of Draco is drawn as appearing between the bears major and minor, sometimes called the sheepfolds. The eagle symbolizes freedom, and the 13-stringed harp, the completion of a great age, as well as the joy of having reached Shiloh. When the dragon is defeated, Israel comes to her own and the altar is overturned, pouring fire from heaven upon the favored country, America, to which these constellations are assigned. The esoteric schools allot Levi to Sagittarius, although the Bible groups Levi with Simeon. In this ruling of December, the sun sinks into his manger, giving the origin of the Christian legends and the sun myths woven around every Christ that has ever come to earth. St. John's Eve is celebrated by Masonry as the ancient Christmas festival, which was to the northern nations an important event, for they were in darkness several days at this time. With the death of Osiris, the sun god, the people were assured by the priests that Isis would again bring him forth, for this, for the Egyptians, was the reading of the northern myth of Perseus and Andromeda. The constellation of Capricornus, also assigned to America by antiquarian students, shows a goat sinking down as if dying, while the decans given are Sagitta with the arrow, Achaia, the other eagle said to be the symbol of Mexico, and Delphinus, the dolphin springing from the sea. Death has come to the eagle through the era of Sagitta, while death is the expression of the whole group of constellations save that of Dolphinus. The ancient year closed when the sun went into his cave. Hence, this symbolism indicates a bringing over from the preceding group of the Christmas constellations. The dolphin suggests the new year. Sagittarius and Capricornus stand for the ancient Atlantis destroyed, but rising again in America and Mexico, while oddly enough, the tribe of Joseph is allotted to the constellation of Capricornus. In Bible lore, Joseph's inheritance was given by Jacob to his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, who stand respectively for America and the Shiloh, or rest that shall close the great cycle. America, as Manasseh, becomes the refuge for the divine maid, the woman of Revelations, when she flees with the child, truth to the wilderness from the presence of the dragon. Verily, Joseph is a fruitful bough whose branches run over the wall. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. The white stone with the all-seeing eye is the shepherd of divine Israel, the ancient church. And now Aquarius. Jesus said, "When we sup again, we will sup in the house of the man with the water pitcher." That is Aquarius. The treacherous south door of the temple of man, the stage of his earth life, the ancients symbolized by water, because it is never at rest. That is why the masses of people are symbolized by water. They are never at rest. And that is why The cover of that Omni magazine grabbed my eye so quickly. There were no ripples upon the water. We put off mind as a garment at death, reclothing with a new one each reincarnation. We find it a most difficult asset to master, and through it the serpent ever succeeds in leading us astray. A change of mind in the Aquarian age is the hint left us by the wise teachers of old. A change that should at last restore the reign of Virgo, the divine maid. The constellation given is the waterman, pouring out water freely upon the earth. Further reminders of the great drama are given in the decans of Aquarius, as in the southern fish drinking in more mind at the stream of wisdom. Water also is the symbol of faith. The fish was the first sign of the early church, but was superseded by the cross. The famous white steed, Pegasus, as the second decan, speeds with the good news of the drinking of wisdom that shall result in the return of the divine maid and the restoration of the arcane mysteries. And how many of you see this horse? Every time you put a videotape that you've rented into your VCR. The third decan is the white swan flying with the cross at its breast, which, interpreted by the secret schools, leads us to believe that man was to conclude with the Aquarian age and the drinking in of the water of wisdom, as well as the outpouring of it upon that nation which was to bring him face to face with the cross. Through the cross, he would liberate himself and his soul, as well as the divine maid, as shadowed forth by the swan, and send Pegasus speeding with the news to all the world. The month of February and the tribe of Dan are allotted to Aquarius, and old legends give the coat of arms to the Danaus of Greece as a white horse treading a serpent underfoot. The Knights of St. George have especially followed this symbolism as a personal application. And of the tribe of Dan, Jacob said, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an alder in the path that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall backwards. Pisces shows two fishes swimming north and south, binding head and feet of the zodiacal man, as well as representing the equal day and night of the spring equinox. They are upheld by the band as a first decan, which is doubled and fast to Cetus, the whale or sea monster of Aries. The second decan is Cepheus, the branch, the third Andromeda in chains. The band signifies the conjoining principle of nature, the union of head and feet, of wisdom and the physical. Cepheus, the branch, is the foundation of all myths concerning the Christ, or Adonis. He is also a figure for God as king of the celestial country, known as Ethiopia in the ancient initiations, in which were enacted the great dramas of the rescue of Andromeda from the sea monster by Perseus, the Knight of the Grail. Cepheus stands upon his foot, upon the pole of the heavens, with the branch of peace in one hand. The divine maid must suffer the advances of Cetus until freed by the good knight Perseus, when she will be betrothed to him in the presence of her father Cepheus and her mother Cassiopeia. Cepheus, the virgin-born son, is to conquer the flesh, to win the victory over the sensual, free the Andromeda within, his own soul from the snares which entangle it. Then will be given to the hero the celestial vision, kingship of heaven within, while Perseus also frees the Andromeda within and becomes the bridegroom, receiving the highest honors that may be conferred by the chair of Cassiopeia. Naphtali was the Israelite tribe assigned to Pisces, and of him Jacob said, Naphtali is a hind let loose, he giveth goodly words. The month of March belongs to Pisces. Andromeda's mother, wife of Cepheus, is the figure drawn for the first decan of the ram, or Aries. Cassiopeia represents intuition and woman as its highest expression, but her chair has for many ages been overturned and empty, showing that recognition of the intuitive principle has been unknown to the races of the past. The ancient Britons called their supreme chair of national justice Cassiopeia's chair, and administered the law by intuitional judgment. Cetus, the sea monster, closely bound by the Lamb, is the second decan in the constellation group and furnishes the original of the many allusions to the Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. The Lamb is closely bound to Cetus and is upholding also the fishes of Pisces, innocence between wisdom and sensuality. Perseus, the armed and mighty knight with the winged feet, figures as the third decan, holding aloft the cut-off head of the monster, with its writhing, snaky hair in the one hand, while he brandishes a sword in the other. He has rescued Andromeda, divine one, from her chains, restored the soul within himself by the sword applied to his lower self, and now represents himself as ready for the betrothal before the King and Queen of Heaven. This drama was enacted before the classes of the ancient temples of Persia, Greece, and the British Isles, before the Christian era veiled the esoteric truths of human nature from the eyes of the people, and specifically can be understood by those who can see in the annals of Arthur and the Grail Knights. Ares was given to Gad as a coat of arms by Jacob, and of him he said, "A troop shall overcome him, but he shall prevail at the last." April is the month of Aries. And now comes the bull, of course. It is important, for it contains the mystic Pleiades. Dante alludes to it as the white rose. Remember the War of the Roses? Under the sweet influence of the Pleiades, the red rose of love turns to the white rose of purity. For ages, the seventh star in this band of little sisters was invisible, but it can now be plainly seen with the naked eye. Here the first decan, Orion, a glorious prince, has crossed the second, the river of Eridanus, tortuous and baffling, and in his efforts to aid the divine maid has at last, in belted triumph, with sword in hand, set his foot upon the serpent. Auriga the Wagoner, the third decan, is a constellation of which little has been written, but it symbolizes the Good Shepherd, carrying a mother goat and kids upon the left arm, with bands in the right hand. On many a church window we have studied this figure and thought of Christ, the Good Shepherd, without piercing the veil of the arcane teaching and applying it to ourselves as a lesson in shepherding our intuition. Taurus and the mystic Pleiades are said to have hung over Egypt when the Great Pyramid was built, whose mate today stands ruined and forgotten in the Yucatan. When the white stone was carried forward by the tribe of Joseph, the Britons under Jacob's ruling that Joseph should be the keeper of the Grail, the sign of Taurus followed him as the ruling sign of the British Isles, and to this day the Briton is called John Bull. The truths of the mysteries sealed in this constellation are only to be revealed to the advanced student. And none of you that I am reading this to are in any way advanced, so many of you will not understand any of this at all. And that is unfortunate. But you can learn to understand it. The truths of the mysteries sealed in this constellation are only to be revealed to the advanced student who, like Orion, crosses over the tortuous river and puts the serpent under his heel. The tribe given to Taurus is Asher, out of whom has come many an Anglo-Saxon colony. Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties, said Jacob. The month of May is assigned to Taurus. East of Taurus, on the other side of the Milky Way, sit Castor and Pollux, or Gemini, the twins, where the year, rising in the full tide of spring, pauses at June 22nd for Midsummer Eve. This night was a part of the ancient church ceremonies. Shakespeare wrote a play around it, and remains today in Masonry or Freemasonry as the Feast of St. John, the opposite of that St. John celebrated at Christmas. The point within a circle, with a vertical line each side, marking the shortest day and the longest, still indicates the ancient scientific system. Another serpent is set in Gemini, that we may never forget this basilisk presence within ourselves. Orion is bravely treading him underfoot, while Canis Major, the great dog or prince, coming, and Canis Minor, the second dog, following Sir Sirius, complete the three decans of Gemini. The tribe of Issachar is given to Gemini and June, loveliest of months. And his father said, Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. And he saw that the rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. Cancer. The decans of the crab constellation are more in evidence in literature and mythology than Cancer expression. The two bears, known familiarly as Great and Little Dippers, are the first and second decans and occupy a position in the northern heavens which precludes their setting. They swing from age to age around the pole star, which is a part of the lesser group. They have been called the sheepfolds in connection with Arcturus the shepherd, while the Druids called the great bear Arthur's wain, because it was ever in apparition, like the Christic teaching, and though veiled and smothered by false teaching, was the esoteric form of all creeds and dogmas. Sheepfolds as a word applied to the dippers implies the shelter of the people who blindly enact the great drama through the ages, while the dragon's head thrusts itself between as guardian of the mysteries. The sheeple. The dippers are peculiarly allotted to Christ and his church through all church symbology. The third decan in Cancer is Argo the Ark. Here we have the original of Noah's Ark, which bore over from the elder Golden Age the arcane teachings, while Noah is the Bible name for Melchizedek, supreme Grand Master of that eventful time. The Argonauts, in search of the Golden Fleece, were an early band of Sir Knights seeking the Holy Grail and the ancient knowledge of the Helio-Archite teachings which came down from the Elder Age, and today they are known as the Jason Society. Applied to the individual, the ark signifies the boat which brings him safely into the earth life through the perilous waters of birth. Zebulun was given this month of July and the crab constellation, and Jacob designated his abode to be by the sea, saying, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships. And finally, for those who can hear, and for those who can see, and especially for those who will, is Leo, the lion. With Leo, the heart constellation, the 12 clothes. Leo is said to have been especially the symbol of that lion-hearted race of heroes which followed the age of the gods and who knew nothing of the outer breath. Another serpent, Hydra, is the first decan which both Leo and the crab tread underfoot, and to which Job alludes as the fleeing serpent. The cup, or grail, origin of the Holy Grail, which all who seek the Christ within must find, is the second decan in Leo. It is here pictured as overturning in wrath and poured upon the head of the flying Hydra. Last upon the final act of the great drama comes Corvus, the crow, as third decan in Leo, to tear the remains of the final temptation, Hydra, now trodden underfoot. The bird of doom completes the story of the age-long struggle of man with the old deceiver, the serpent, within himself. The divine maid has been rescued by the Knights of the Grail. Perseus, the Christ, is betrothed to her in the presence of the king of the celestial country. Cepheus stands with his foot upon the pole star, while the queen Cassiopeia occupies her righted throne. Draco has passed from sight into limitless space. The Aquarian Age has brought in the age of Leo, and with it the inner breath and a godlike race born without sin. Shiloh at last returns with the magnificent entrance of Virgo standing upright, holding in her hand the promised seed of the coming Christ, a virgin-born race, and the last golden age. Lion hearts have been born all down the ages, who stood ready to shed the last drop of blood for a principle. Only one tribe of Israel survived the dispersion of the 12, and that was he of whom Jacob said, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, as an old lion. Who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Verily, he, watching over Israel, slumbers not nor sleeps. August, the month of completion, belongs to the Lion. Good night, dear listeners, and God bless you all.